and I'll be asking you how you'd spend that 13.5 billion catch-up fund. And I am
Live
live.
from London, this is the Sunday Lunch with Kalil Rouse on Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live on the Podbean app or desktop player. Just head over to www.podbean.com/LSW/TT Radio or search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TT Radio.
Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon. If you've just tuned in, you've missed me mess up on my intro already, which is good because you missed it, so it's fine. I said it was March. It's definitely not March. It is May. So as I said in the intro, good afternoon. This is strange. There are so many strange things going on right now. Please let me know in the chat if you're here. Show me some love in the chat. Put some emojis. I don't know what you want to put in. Wave, say hello, say good afternoon, just to check I can be heard to start with. Because I'm in a new location in my kind of house. I'm locked away in the bedroom. It's the daytime, which is strange. I'm used to doing the show in the evening. My son is awake. That's another complication. Who knows how that's going to affect the show? He's in the kind of the living room, 2 closed doors away. So hopefully, you won't have any of those interruptions. I always remember that well-known, what was it, BBC News interview where the kids come when the kid comes wheeling in while the guy is while he's being a guest on the news, and I think it's like the au pair or the nanny comes scrambling into the room. That's how I'm envisaging. That's like my kind of nightmare of something happening on this show with my son just running into the room. But at the moment, he's like I said, he's 2 closed doors away. And I'm going to talk about him because today's show is all about the trials and tribulations of being a teacher and a parent. And so I've got just a kind of a bit of background on me while people are entering the studio. I see a lot of people entering now. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Sasha, I see you there. Nice to see you, Sasha. She's going to be calling in shortly once we get this room popping, as they say. We've also got someone that starts with RMA. No idea who you are, but welcome. Thank you. Aaron says happy Sunday. Happy Sunday to you too. Right back at you. I've got Don in the chat sending in some emojis. As far as I'm aware, I'm also streaming live, not just via the Podbean app. I think I'm going semi-global, and by global I'm talking YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Apparently, Mr. Tom Rogers let me know that I was streaming live. So if you're listening via Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, welcome. If you want to kind of interact with the show, then you got to download that Podbean app. The rhyme was not intended there, but it works. You need to download that Podbean app and tune in, and you can kind of get in on the live chat. As always, call in at any time. This is a live talk show, and it works best with callers at any time. I have one scheduled caller coming on late, well, not even later on, shortly, called Sasha White, and we'll be discussing the trials and tribulations of teaching and parenthood. But while Sasha is on the line, that doesn't mean anyone else can't call in. You can call in. It's a talk show. Later on in the show, we'll be talking about these masks on or masks off. It's kind of re-emerged in the news now that we've got the easing of restrictions coming in tomorrow, I believe, which is crazy. And then also in the news recently, they're talking about this 13.5 billion catch-up fund. And I'll be asking you guys how you would spend it if you had the power. I've just seen, I see the people in the chat. I just want to see someone's already shared the live show. Thank you, Mr. Tom Hopkins Burke. Someone doesn't know how to change their name. I can't really, I can't redirect you. I click on the account, and then I go to settings, I think account settings, and then it was fairly self-explanatory. I can't remember. Everyone's joining. I might even run the intro one more time because there's a whole bunch of people in here, and I want you guys to hear me hopefully nail it better than the first time and actually get the month correct. So let's run it one more time because everyone is joining now.
Live from London, this is the Sunday Lunch with Kalil Rouse on Teachers Talk Radio.
Good afternoon for the second time. It's now 1:05 on Sunday, the 16th of May, and it's my debut Sunday lunch show. In today's show, I'll be joined by Sasha White to discuss the trials and tribulations of teaching and parenthood. Later on, we'll be discussing masks in schools, and I'll be asking you guys how you'd spend that £13.5 billion catch-up fund. As always, tune in and talk it out, and I am
live from London. This is the Sunday Lunch with Kalil Rouse on Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live on the Podbean app or desktop player. Just head over to www.podbean.com/LSW/TT Radio or search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TT Radio.
Woo, Tom Hopkins Burke, you thought I forgot about my transition music. Never forgot about it. I was just waiting for the right time to drop it there we go. So drop it for the first time. Okay. As I said, last bit of housekeeping before Sasha gets in. So Sasha, just have your finger hovering over that call-in button. As always, please interact in the chat, share the show, call in at any time if you have a point or you want to contribute, or you can just type in the chat if you don't want to come on the live, kind of the live caller. But all people are welcome, whether you're calling from near or far. Someone's actually already calling in. Let's bring them in. Someone's already calling in. Hello, are you there? Oh, no, can't join. May call in later. Okay, let's go. Sasha, can you call in for me, please? And let's get this show on the road. We're just about to talk about, like I said, the trials and tribulations of teaching and parenthood. Sasha, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, Sasha.
Brilliant.
Loud and excellent. That's all the technological stuff we need out of the way.
That was the most stressful part for me, making sure I could actually figure out how to use the technology.
It's very simple. Listen, I think people whenever I invite guests on, I think they feel like it's quite advanced. And then when you try to explain it to them, they always don't believe you that it's as simple as just download the app, click on the link, click the phone, and that's literally it. They always get the bit of the jitters. I was hoping for
more of like a World War II headphone sort of look. This will do.
No, just what have you got? The iPhone headphones?
Yeah, literally just my iPhone headphones.
Standard.
Yeah. I have to get them out of the original box.
Wow. So what, the first time using them?
Yep, first time using them.
Fair enough. Well, welcome, Sasha. Welcome to my first ever Sunday lunch show. Usually I'm a Saturday late. Well, not usually. In the past, I was a Saturday late show kind of guy. Now I'm on in the daytime. Very strange. Sasha, can you do me a favor for myself and the listeners? Give yourself a quick introduction and explain how you're connected to this topic of teaching and parenthood, please.
So I'm Sasha White. I'm head of history in Lincolnshire, a lovely school. And I'm here because I had a bit of a tweet rant last week, just because I had a really big week with parenting and teaching. And I think it clearly got Kalil's attention. Wasn't intended to, but yeah, I have a 3-year-old daughter, and sometimes the juggle is quite a bit. So I'm here to discuss that.
Excellent. Thank you, Sasha. And what I'm going to say, anyone in the chat who is also a teacher and a parent at this moment, can you just let us know how old your child is, son, daughter, etc., how old they are, and how long you've been teaching whilst being a parent, I guess. I'll be interested. Oh, someone else is trying to call in. 1 second, Sasha. You may have someone joining us. They tried to call in earlier. We'll see if they're going to come in this time. Hello, Sahina. Hello, Sahina, can you hear me? Sahina, unfortunately, I can't hear you at the moment. I don't know if you can hear me, but unfortunately, I can hear some background noise, but I can't hear your voice. Okay, Sahina, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to disconnect you, but by all means, try to sort out the technological hitch and call back in if you'd like to contribute to the conversation. Right, I had to disconnect them. Aaron in the chat said pocket dial.
I think pocket dial might be right.
It could have been a pocket dial. They could have just had Podbean app on the go, put it in, because it seems like it. It seems like a pocket dial. Right, as you said, so some people in the chats, we've got Jen says her daughter is 11 months and she got a stepdaughter who's 12. Miss Cato STEM says she's got a son. It's going to be 1 on Friday. So happy birthday to Miss Cato STEM's son. It's going to be 1 on Friday. And then Nora said, hey, okay, Sasha, as you said, there was a tweet that you did, and it did catch my eye. Whenever I do my shows, I have a look and see what people are talking about, and I get influenced by it. And it was, I've got your kind of thread, and you called it Teaching and Parenting in 2021. And it was just, I think it was 10 tweets where you were talking about how your week went. And as I was reading it, I was like, oh my word, I couldn't even if this is actually how it goes for you, I don't know how you when you breathe
I mean, I
because
think
it's
probably that was a very busy week,
okay.
and they can be those weeks, but yeah, that was a particularly busy week, and it was just yeah. I thought the little bit of spare time I have, what I'll do is I will spend it ranting in 10 tweets. Apparently,
Did you know it was 10 tweets before you posted the 10 tweets? I'm
no,
assuming.
no, I did not. Just kept waffling on, and then we
So I'm
got to
actually
where
going to
we
jump.
got to.
Indeed, I'm actually going to look at them. So you got your first one on Monday. You said you're at your desk by 7 a.m. Is that the norm?
Yes, so I am incredibly fortunate in that I have grandparent childcare on a Monday, which means I can get to work really early. It's the only day of the week I can, so I make sure I'm there super early and get as much done as I can to maximize the amount of time. There's a
Right.
lot of
I'm
when you talk about parenting and teaching, there's a lot of maximizing the time.
indeed. I listen before I had. So like I said, my son's going to be one very very soon. And then I think before I had a son, I used to my timing at work. I used to sometimes get to work a little bit later. But ever since he's got a lot more active, I've been getting into work a lot earlier to try and again maximize my time.
To avoid
People
the early morning.
genuinely, well, that's why you say that. Genuinely, so people, so like I said, we've got Mr. Aaron. We've got Mr. Aaron CW said his son is 60 months. He's been teaching for 9 years. So very similar
Yeah.
to me, I guess. 7 a.m. starts for me. I keep seeing this thing on Twitter, this teacher 5 o'clock club. What is that? People that are just awake at 5 o'clock?
Oh, it is literally just people who are awake at 5 a.m. and they're
Crazy.
teachers. Yeah.
I
I'm
did wonder what
sometimes
it
part of
was.
that, but I try to avoid it.
Yeah, I always wondered what it was. I wonder if anyone else in the room is part of this teacher 5 o'clock club. Are you awake at 5:30 a.m.? I get up these days at 5:30 a.m. Um,
Yeah, me
that's
too.
standard now, and that's crazy to think
Yeah.
of it. And to make that happen, I'm going to bed. It's lights out all out by about 10:30, 10. Yeah, about 10:30, 10 p.m. roughly. I'm in bed is what I'm trying to do, so I can actually get
Oh, I
some
haven't
sleep.
managed that. I am late to bed and early to rise. I'm just having less sleep.
I was going to say, so what time you roughly get into bed on average?
Oh, I'm in bed for midnight,
Woo! And you're up at when?
5:30.
My word. So
Just
what happens to these kind of 8 hours that we're supposed to get as adults?
I just operate on less now. Um, there's usually a point by
have you
about
have you
week 4 of the summer holidays where I can finally start to sleep in more, and then the prospect of going back to 5 hours is less appealing. But yeah, I just have
yeah,
less now, and more productive because of it. Probably not great for my
wow.
health, but there we are.
I was gonna say your body must have I'm assuming your body's adapted.
Yeah, just has less.
Um yeah. People in the chat, let me know what time you wake up. Are you a member of the teacher 5 o'clock club, or do you get a nice little lie until 6? Because me, like I said, I'm a 5:30 guy. I'm on most days a week, I'm getting in about 7, yeah. And it's because I've got baby duties in the morning. I've got to be up, I've got to sort his food out. And then he goes to nursery 2 times a week, goes to my parents once a week, and it's all systems go first thing in the morning by the stove, heating up food. Are you doing something similar first thing in the morning?
Well, breakfast it happens at nursery 4 days a week, which is an absolute blessing. When she actually goes to primary school and I have to actually start doing some of the parenting at 7 in the morning,
Mm.
that I think will be more challenging. So yeah, but it's all about getting everything lined up by the front door the night before, isn't it? I'm sure
It
you'll
is.
know.
It
Yeah.
is. It's all system. I feel like it's all systems go on the evening beforehand to get.
Every
Cause
day is like remember when you were younger and you used to prepare to go on a holiday and you like had the early morning run to the airport. That's every day now, isn't it?
yeah, it is like that. It is getting making sure everything is packed so you don't have to worry about it in the morning. But then there's some evenings when you just can't
Yes.
be bothered. But then you've got to, and you just sat there looking at the unpacked bag, looking at the food that's not in the right containers, looking at everything and just realizing it's just doesn't seem that appealing. And you have to drag yourself off the sofa because it'll be worse if you left it till morning. That's
Absolutely.
that's what goes through at the moment. So we had so desk at 7 a.m. You got some days you said you get to your desk at 8 a.m.
Yeah, that's most days. Yeah.
Most days, most days 8 a.m. then.
Yeah. So if
Okay.
when I do the nursery drop off, I then get to work for 5:08.
Okay. How do you find that transition? How much time does that give you in order to get your stuff ready for
Not a
school?
huge amount. I would definitely like to be there earlier, but physically getting from nursery to school, it's the fastest I can get there. So
Yeah.
I'm often, and I'm sure we'll talk about the parental guilt, but I'm often the first one waiting there for the doors to open. And that makes it run a bit smoother.
Doors? Are you talking about the nursery doors?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
nursery just open up, and I'm the first one popping her in. You know,
Yeah,
off
just
you go, love.
chuck him in and off you go. Off you go. See ya. I'm off to work now. I think that's what
Exactly.
my
Exactly.
partner has to do the same thing. My partner's also a teacher. She does the
Oh,
nursery
you're
drop in the
both
morning.
teachers. Oof.
We are both teachers. Yeah,
Gluttons for
we are both teachers.
punishment.
Well, listen. I love the profession. I love the profession. But we
Same.
are both teachers, so it comes with its challenges. And I think, yeah, like you said, you have just got to drop them and go, because, like you mentioned, we will talk about it. There is something about teaching. There's something about guilt, and as I found some article that I think kind of expresses it. And I wonder if you guys feel similar. I feel like there's just something about teaching where we feel so much pressure to obviously look after our own kids, but then we've got other people's kids we've also got a responsibility for, and it just makes everything a bit more just feels a bit more weighty, a bit more pressure on us, I guess. And I think that has a knock-on effect that we're going to get into, because I wonder how easy it is. So people that are in, thank you. Those of you that are just joining into the studio, as I put in the chat, we're currently starting out this discussion about the trials and tribulations of teaching and parenthood. If you're a teacher and a parent, let us know how you find it. Do you feel like you're able to put your all into your parenting and put your all into the teaching profession, or does something always have to give? Are you capable of being a great teacher and a great parent, or are they mutually exclusive? Is something you're gonna have to forego something? I wonder, because both kind of responsibilities could be full-time, well, not even could be, are easily full-time jobs if you let them. And I think they can, obviously, that gets I've just seen someone in the chat saying they're trying to get their head around getting up at 5:30 a.m. on a regular basis. Listen, it takes getting used to. 5:45 is a lie-in for me. Bed by 10:30, up by 5:30, sorting the little one out, and then setting him up so he's getting ready for nursery. It's crazy. Okay, let's move. So I found a couple articles actually, and I sent them across. I don't know if you managed to read any of them, Sasha, but there was one which is, I'm going to start on a bit of a negative article actually, and it's the one that was called "Teaching a Family Unfriendly Profession."
Yeah.
They were and they were saying, I think a lot of people feel like teaching is great if you got a family, because you've got the holidays, you've got the summers, you've got the half terms that coincide. It seems like a really kind of compatible profession for having a family. And this person in the article saying that it's a family unfriendly profession. Let me know what you think in the chat. Is teaching a family friendly or unfriendly? And what they were saying, we're going to just go a little bit by bit, and then we're going to have some comments, see what they say. So they start by talking about parenthood is a job that requires us to give up almost all of our time and energy for the well-being of another. Teachers are, by their nature, we're givers. The desire to help others, to give something of ourselves up for their inspiration, their betterment, is at the heart of belonging in a classroom. So we find ourselves giving and giving and giving. Does that resonate with you, Sasha?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Teaching is such a socially conscious profession. You wouldn't do it unless you really cared about giving everything to it. And obviously the very nature of parenting is the same. But there's only so much in the cup, and you can't pour and pour and pour before there's nothing left. So yeah, it's absolutely challenging, because you want to do the best by all of those people. And then when you have the parental element in it, one of those people is yours. So at least one of those people are yours. So it's a real struggle. Certainly being a parenting friendly profession was something I believed as a younger woman, and one of the reasons I really wanted to teach. And I perhaps wouldn't agree that it is as friendly as I would have expected, but we get the holidays, don't we? So
That's the thing. There's a rough with the smooth. There's all kind of, is it
exactly.
all okay because we get the 6 weeks with our kids. I don't know. I feel like genuinely knowing that we've got the 6 weeks of Christmas, the Easter, the half terms, everything. Does it make it all worth it? I'm tempted to say yeah. I think that 6 weeks. Not many people in many jobs. I don't know how many people we've got in the live studio, either on Twitter or YouTube or Facebook, who are obviously parents, but maybe work in a profession that isn't teaching. So therefore, when their kids are off for 6 weeks in summer, they're still having to work. I can't imagine it. I've never not had a summer holidays.
Yeah, they have to have like wraparound care and family helping them out and all of your annual leave is trying to figure out how to look after children. I imagine that must be really tricky.
Indeed. Let me know if you are in the chat and you've got, or if you're listening on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, then tweet me. It's at Kalil underscore R91. If you want to tweet me, I've got my Twitter open so I can see any kind of live tweets. Again, if you're in the conversation, if you're a teacher and a parent and want to call in and share your experiences, please do. It's a live open talk show. I'm joined by Sasha White at the moment, and we're just starting to talk about the trials and tribulations of trying to juggle being a teacher and being a parent. This article went on, and I couldn't believe the kind of things she was saying. So one little bit, she said, I have held my pale and whimpering baby as she struggles for breath in a stark hospital room while emailing cover one in between the lines. This seems like maybe when she was potentially giving birth or just her baby was unwell, she had to be still emailing cover from her mobile phone, which just, if this was what communicated to her school, the fact that they still asked her to send in cover is absolutely ridiculous, in my opinion. I don't know how you feel about that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Of course, you need to have those structures in place departmentally and school-wide that support staff. You know, we all have lives as well. And sometimes there are emergencies and sometimes there are situations, and the school and departments should be able to step in those. And for the most part, they do. But I think we're also potentially guilty of wanting to ensure we've done it ourselves. I know I've certainly sent cover, or I mean, quite recently, done a Teams lesson from a hospital bed. And I could have just said no. I probably should have just said no.
Pause. You did it. Pause. 1 second. You said pause. You said you've done a Teams lesson from a
Yes. I wasn't
hospital bed.
terribly ill or anything. I was just having to have an I just happened to have an iron transfusion, which is not super
Right.
traumatic or anything. It's just sitting there having iron put into you. But there, you know, we were still doing remote learning, and there wasn't anybody available to take the register and start the class off. So I just did it for two of them, and it was fine until there was a lady who was not in a good shape at all in the bed opposite me, and there's me talking about Stalin as a dictator, and that was then a bit awkward. So I tried to wrap it up quickly. But yeah, we go above and
Wow.
beyond sometimes, don't we?
I was gonna say,
Because
I applaud your commitment, but I also question how I could. Listen, there are certain situations where I'm thinking you just got to say no. But I feel like a lot of teachers, especially the more kind of like, I don't know if the word is conscientious or just the most committed teachers, find it so hard to say no because that guilt, for whatever reason, not if you didn't do that lesson, you would think, oh, I've let what 30 kids down, for example. But sometimes, listen, I'm going to tell you now, if you're in a hospital bed, there is no need to be doing any lessons whatsoever. And
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. No, of course. And if it was certainly if it was my daughter that was unwell, you know, I'd be like, sorry, my attention's elsewhere.
Yeah,
But I don't know, we can occasionally be slightly, you know, we can be martyrs a bit, can't we, as teachers?
definitely.
We're always so conscientious, almost to a fault. There is that element.
I think I'm the same. I've had to train
Yeah.
myself. I don't know if you guys in the chat agree, but I've had to train myself to kind of, so I have to leave school at a certain time so that I can actually go and pick up my
Mhm.
son. If I don't pick him up, worst case, like he's at my parents at that point, so it's not the worst case scenario. But I feel like I've got a responsibility to make sure I'm on time for them. So I've got to log off the computer, shut down everything, actually leave work 5:30, 5:35 latest. Otherwise, I feel like I'm like overburdening my parents. I'm thinking that's just something overburdening. I'm sure they'll be absolutely fine. And then I've had situations where I'm making phone calls from the car on the drive to my parents' house because there was an issue at school that I needed to follow up with the parents. I was thinking, if I don't follow up with them today and I leave it till tomorrow morning, then I haven't done my job properly. And all these pressures are
Yeah.
kind of just mounting on when you're thinking, right, I'm just
Oh,
gonna
absolutely.
do as best as
I've
I
done
can.
parental phone calls while my daughter's in the bath. Like sometimes it's bizarre, isn't it?
Let me know in the chat, where's the most kind of, I say random, but the most ridiculous circumstances you've still made parental contact? For me, I think genuinely, I think I've not gone much further than just whilst driving. Let me just put a caveat in here. I'd set the call up before I started driving, and then I started driving
Oh yeah, absolutely.
before people think I was just driving there, typing the number away on my phone. But it was a long phone conversation. It took me most of my journey. Where is the most kind of not even outrageous, but just you look back and think, wow, I've put in a lot of effort here making a phone call in this situation. I think you top it. If your child's in the bath and you're making a phone call with your little one splashing about in the background, I rate you. I do rate you. It's
Yeah,
very
but the
committed.
parents are great about it as well. You just say, just so you know, I'm in this situation. I'm happy to talk to you, but there's splashing going on in the background. Just be aware. And they're lovely
Yeah.
about it. At the
Yeah, I've
bus
just
stop, someone's just said.
at the bus stop, just topping on when you go and popping your oyster on. I think that as well. You can't. It's a difficult one when you're at the bus stop because you're going to be surrounded by random passers by and everything. I guess I don't like. I'm very. I don't know how many people are the same. I don't like people hearing my phone conversations. I feel a bit weird about it. And especially depending on what the phone conversation was, I guess if you're on the packed bus and you know when I've not been a bus in ages, but you're in a packed bus and then someone's having a phone conversation and everyone on the bus is listening, but obviously trying to look like they're not listening. I don't want to be in that situation with phone conversation with schools. But I think that's I've
Particularly
never
not
done
if
a
it's
phone
an awkward
conversation.
conversation about behaviour or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. And then people realize you're a teacher and it gets a bit awkward. Like I don't. Oh, I've just. There's a response. I wasn't on the bus.
Just at a
Just
bus
at the
stop. Yeah.
just at the bus stop, nobody in earshot. Fair enough. And then I imagine you said, "Oh, sorry, got to go. I've got to hop on the bus now." So then that was the end. That's a nice way to kind of end the conversation. I find you got to be tactical, haven't you? When you're saying, "Oh, yep, just getting home now," so we're gonna have to end the conversation. That's a tactical way
Yeah.
of ending the conversation without feeling like you're cutting it off prematurely. But they understand. I think parents do appreciate when you say, "Oh, yeah, I'm just quickly making a call. I know it's 5:30, 6:30, whatever." They do appreciate it. We do often go above and beyond, and I think it's just because we are givers as a profession.
Hmm.
We are definitely givers. Okay, so later on, this woman goes on again. It is a very kind of negative article, but I just want to talk about it. She starts talking about um, she sounds she was just struggling. She was seeing her planning time being taken away. She was teaching more. She had a pension reduced. The school's budget was cut, but she kept on giving. And then she said, "Oh, she was going on to talk about how her sanity was being taken away." It's a very, 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 very kind of poignant article. And then she's been treated for stress and anxiety, and she's witnessed her colleagues suffer similarly because of all this pressure of trying to please everyone. And first and foremost, you need to look after your kids. But I think if, as a parent, like you're not even doing that correctly, then or you're not being able to give your all to looking after your kids, that can have a knock-on effect and a bit of a cycle. Have you ever felt, Sasha, that you're not that you could always give more to your kids? You feel that? Do you get that guilt?
Absolutely. Both in teaching and in parenting. I think I look at both because I give a lot to both. There are times when the balance goes one way or the other, but I kind of trust that at some point it will shift back again. So I know, if we take next week 5 of term 5 in the middle of tags, it's a bin fire at the moment, isn't it, really? It's a
Mm,
lot going on, and I definitely know my daughter is not going to get the attention she deserves this week, and that's rough. And there was definitely a time when I would be really hard on myself with that, and the parental guilt is pretty strong. However, I know 2 weeks later there'll be a half term and there will be time that is just hers and it's totally devoted. So I don't think you can ever give everything to both of those things, because
mm,
I mean, how in any profession you can't give everything to parenting or everything to your job, um, because we don't have everything to give, and at some point you have to
yeah.
keep something back. So I think it's just accepting the shortfalls and know that you're doing your best.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think like you put it nail on the head. I think it's we as teachers. I've always been a teacher that I accepted. I'm never gonna. If you're gonna be a perfectionist, you'll never stop working.
Yeah.
If that was if your aim is to get everything perfect, everything right, and have everything done, um, you're never gonna stop working. And it's the same with parenting. I think you have to accept, like you said, that things are gonna fall by the wayside, and that can happen in your home life, that can happen at school, and you need to. I think I always say to people when I've been talking about them, if you can look back on your day and know that you've kind of carried out your duties with integrity, you've prioritized as best as you can, you've tried to manage your time, you haven't just kind of dossed about the whole day, you've actually tried to be as productive as possible, but just task
Mm.
E, F, and G never managed to get done before you left. Maybe it's time to let task E, F, and G and leave it for tomorrow morning because your kids need your time as well. And I think
For sure.
and I think I've become very, I've tried to like compartmentalize things and said I will get as much done in school as I can. Because when I go home, I've only got, for my son, we're talking, I pick him up at around 6-ish. We have to drive back to where we live, which can take about 40-45 minutes. By the time we're home, just before 7, his bedtime's 7:30. So I'm looking at 45 minutes of kind of daddy time, where most of it is spent just getting him in the bath and cleaning him down and then putting him to bed. So
It's
throughout
just
the week,
wrangling the evening routine, isn't it?
yeah, it is. And I'm thinking there's no way on earth I'm not gonna get home and just work straight away and not have that time with him, because if I don't see him in a day, it feels quite strange to not see him in a whole day. It feels quite weird. And I've just got to try and make up for lost time in the weekend. I wonder in the chat again.
Yeah.
So people, yeah, go on.
Sometimes good enough is good enough, right?
Yeah,
Sometimes that has to be it.
no, definitely. People in the chat, if you're a teacher and a parent, or if you're on kind of Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, on average, how many hours do you spend with your child, like maybe on the week? Let's talk about the working weeks. Of course, weekends will be more. The working week, how many hours do you spend actually with your child, Monday to Friday? I'm intrigued. Like I said, for me, it's maximum, if we exclude the drive, because the drive is not really spending time. The drive is me focused on the road, playing some music, him in the background, rattling away his shake or whatever he's doing, falling asleep. So it's not really time spent. So I'd say roughly no more than an hour, I'd say, per day. And that's crazy just to think about. On 5 days a week, I'm only spending an hour with him. So you guys in the chat, let me know if you're a teacher and a parent, or if you're on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, tweet me, how many hours do you spend with your little one, Monday to Friday? Because I wonder if people manage to spend more today. I know there's some people that do that, kind of leave school very early so that they can be home early, but then I think they work. I don't know what the balance is. Do you work with anyone, Sasha, that you know leave school extra early so they can get home with their kids? Do you know anyone like that?
I try to one day a week, so that I'll have more of an afternoon with her, and then it just means it's usually a Friday, and then I know I've got more work to do the evening and then the weekend. But yeah, I definitely have worked with colleagues who are straight out the door, and certainly before I was a parent. Oh God, I cringe to think I was probably really snooty, thinking, "Oh, they're leaving soon, aren't they?" And yeah, then you have kids, and it's the rude awakening.
Pause there, pause, because I've had conversation about this. Why is it? Why are we like this in teaching, where we look at someone who leaves early, and even though in the back of our mind we may assume that they're gonna go home and continue working. I know this happened in my previous school, where there was kind of like that the side eye, where you look at the person who's out the door at 4, thinking, "Oh, you're off pretty early, don't you work?" That kind of vibe, and it's just crazy that we know it exists, but we all still do it sometimes. And I think it's so
Absolutely. It's
toxic.
cultural, isn't it? You're
So
right, it's
toxic.
so toxic.
I
I
don't
once
know.
got called out on it. I think I said to someone, "Oh, so and so always leaves right on the bell." And a teacher who is a few years older than me and had kids, she turned around to me and said, "Do you not know this? Do you not know that person has children? This is what their life is," and told me. And I was well and truly put in my place as a young teacher, and rightly so. And yeah, from that moment onwards, it made me think twice before having an opinion on anyone who leaves at whatever time. People manage their time how they need to manage it.
That's it, isn't it? That's it. I think the school I'm working at the moment, they made a real statement at the beginning to say we're not going to prescribe or be very prescriptive about when you need to be at work, because everyone's going to manage their working responsibilities fit around their other priorities in their life. And that was really refreshing. I've worked in schools where they didn't really say it, but you could tell that they were kind of the people that were working till, I don't know, the school's open till the time that your school's open till, I think, sends a message to staff, doesn't it? If your building is open until 6:37, that sends a kind of unspoken message to staff, being like, "We expect you to be here," kind of vibe, and "We're open, guys. You can stay and work." And it's who wants to be at work at 7 p.m.? Not me. I'll tell you that now.
Yeah.
I do not want to be at work at 7 p.m. I'm glad my school building closes at 5:30, which means we have to be out. And that was again refreshing. But there's been a lot of people in the chat when we started talking about this. So we had Miss Cato Stem was saying that this makes me really sad because I spend an hour with him before nursery, but it's spent getting him ready for bed and breakfast. And by the time he gets back home, there's only about 30 minutes before he goes to bed. And I think if you kind of like tally that up and compare it with the amount of time you're spending with, inverted commas, other people's kids, as we want to call it, you look at the balance, you're like, oh my word. And it does make people, I can imagine how it can make people feel really sad. We have Karen in the chat. She's saying, if I'm not, I think she's saying out of school 30 minutes after students, it's a bad day. So Karen's are straight out the door. Have you ever had, Karen? Let me know in the chat. Anyone, have you ever had that kind of awkward conversation where someone implies that you're not working hard enough because you leave early? Let me know. I wonder, and how did you handle that conversation if it did happen? Let me know, Karen. Jen said, I'm that teacher that leaves on time. Hello, well. And then she said, my life is my family, not work. As much I love teaching, my priority is my family always. That's the way it needs to be. I agree.
But
I
do you
agree.
not
We
think
need to prioritize
sometimes
that.
that focusing on your career is looking after your family? So as a
Mm,
single parent, the hours that I put into work are for her because it's, you know, it's progressing my career and therefore being able to provide for her. So I have that balance sometimes. And when I think, God, I'm doing a lot of hours, the other side of that is it's also for her as well. I mean,
yeah.
it's a tricky balance.
It is a tricky balance. I think if you took it to its kind of extremes and you said, right, you can either work all the time and bring in a lot of money and then provide for your kids but not see them, I think most would, I think no one would take it to the extreme in that sense. But I get what you
No.
mean. All the work we do, we work to pay the bills, we work to support the family. I get that. But then my counter argument is, I guess, your pay in teaching, regardless of whether you worked for 7 hours in a day or 10 hours a day, your pay is not going to increase. So I guess that's unless you take, of course, the more work you do, maybe got more opportunities for career progression, etc. But in the short term Monday to Friday, whether I work 6 hours and chip off home early and actually do nothing at home, or whether I work for 8, 9 hours and do more work at home, I'm going to get paid the same amount. So in the short term, you can say that you're putting in the hours for providing for your family, but genuinely, if you put in fewer hours, you get paid the same amount. That's my cynical view on it, I guess.
That's a really interesting point. When you said to me, what the do you think the impact of being a parent has had on my teaching? 100. My first thought was my productivity, because I don't want to spend time. I want to be efficient with that time. So what would have taken me a long time once upon a time, whether it's planning or marking, I just faff about an awful lot less.
Yeah.
And that way, there's more time at home.
Agreed. I think I think in my early career, I definitely was a bit of a CBA kind of can't be bothered, faff about for a little period of time and then get back to it. But I guess every kind of working moment, especially because I try not to work at home unless it's on like a Sunday evening. I try not to. So I'm making sure in my role I don't teach as much because I've got a kind of pastoral role. So anytime I'm not teaching, I'm trying to make sure it's all systems go to get as many of the things done as possible. And I think my productivity is massively improved and my efficiency is massively improved, especially now I've got a son, because there's just the added thing, right? I'm doing it now, like you said, for a reason. I can get as much done at work so that I give myself the time, whether it's weekends, to not think, oh, I've got so many things I still need to do by Monday that I didn't manage to get done on Friday because I dossed about a little bit on Friday. When now my Fridays are all systems go. When the other members of colleagues are maybe having a bit of a wind down, I'm still going to make sure that I can spend my Saturdays and my Sundays with my son and my family without the kind of looming guilt of thinking, oh, I've got something that was due first thing Monday and I never managed to get it done. So I think it's definitely made me more productive as a practitioner, definitely. I wonder if people in the chat. So the question that we asked on Twitter, there was a big tweet. I might even go through some of the responses as well. So on the Teachers Talk Radio Twitter, so that's at TT Radio 2021. They asked a question that was actually very relevant to this show, and that wasn't by chance. It was something that we worked on in the background. So they asked the question, and the question was very broad, and it's just said, "How has being a parent affected your teaching?" So I ask you guys, same question in the chat as I'm going to go through some of the tweets in response. And I ask you, Sash, the same thing. I think we've answered it a lot, but maybe you've got some other points on it. So the question is, how has being a parent affected your actual teaching? And by that, imagine your actual practice or maybe your interactions, how you maybe see your role in the classroom. Maybe you can narrow it down to parents' evenings. Who knows? But how has being a parent affected your teaching is the question. So you guys in the chat, let me know. And Sasha, hopefully in my ramble, I've given you enough time to think of an answer.
Oh no, that's fine. I have pre-prepared notes. Don't worry.
Go on,
So
Sasha.
definitely, my number one thing is that it's made me a much more productive teacher, human being. You know, everything. Everything from my laundry to my planning is a lot more efficient now that I'm a parent, because you just don't have the time to waste. I think it's given me a greater focus on my career, admittedly not in the first couple of years. When you're in that baby phase, which you will know, it's so time consuming and overwhelming, and that whole new bubble of love is a lot to kind of team with teaching. So, but since then, perhaps more. But certainly in terms of my teaching practice, I think it's changed the way that I interact with parents. Particularly if you have a challenging situation, have a complaint about a member of staff or something that's happened in a lesson. I once would have been perhaps more defensive of the member of staff involved. And also now I just think that parent just loves their child. They just want to be heard. They just want to defend that child. That kind of feral, kind of primal love and protectiveness you have for your child. I have a much better understanding of that now. So when someone is cross about something, that is not about you. And in the same way, when a student is really lashing out in a classroom, that's not about you. There's something else there. And sometimes you just need to give it a moment to let them have their say and then just reapproach it with empathy. I think I'm better at that now than I was before I was a parent.
100%. I've worked in pastoral for, this is now my 5th year of having a kind of head of year pastoral style role. And then definitely the way I did my head of year role in my previous school compared to now, and especially now that I've got my son, I take the responsibility a lot. It's different. You mentioned the word empathy, and that's huge for me now. And I feel like every time I have an interaction with a kid, my school's only got a couple year groups at the moment. We're in new schools. I'm interacting with younger kids, year 7s, year 8s kind of thing. So I feel like every time I'm talking to them I feel like it's a trial run for the kind of conversation I may have to have with my son when he gets a lot older. And I find that I'm much more in tune and more empathetic. It doesn't mean I'm dropping my standards, but it means I do talk. I feel like I talk to maybe in a different way than I did 2 or 3 years ago. And there was a tweet in the thread, on the Twitter thread from Laura McConnell, and this got quite a lot of likes. And she said, "I always think of the children as somebody's babies. I was a parent before I was a teacher, so I've always approached children as multidimensional characters that have a life away from school, and how we see them is a tiny part. I treat them how I want my children treated." And that was a very kind of powerful tweet that I got up to 32 likes. So clearly it was quite popular on the Twitter sphere. And I think that I treat them how I want my children to be treated and you can only do that once you're a parent, I guess. You can say how I want my hypothetical children to be treated, but once you've got your own child, and if you kind of transpose your child to being in someone else's classroom, then you do something right. How would I speak to this kid? How would I want another teacher to talk to my child about this issue? Let me then replicate that with these kids. I think that's something that I think I subconsciously do as well now. And I think, are you the same?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm not sure that it necessarily didn't exist before I was a parent. I definitely don't think you need to be a parent to be able to have empathy for children. Absolutely not. But it gives you perhaps a different insight. I think my interaction with students might not have changed that much, but perhaps more for me, the interaction with parents has changed.
Yeah, tell me more. So can you give me an example by any chance?
Yeah, just that idea of where you have perhaps I might intervene with parental contact sooner than I might have. If you've got a student who's not completing work, underperforming, poor behavior, I might just pick up the phone more readily now, just to pop a line and say, "Do you know this is happening? Is everything okay? How can we support?" And I think perhaps part of it is also that bit older as well, that bit more experience. When you're a very young teacher, I think sometimes that interaction with parents feels quite daunting, because they, parents of a 16-year-old and you're say 22, that feels different. But yeah, I'm much more ready to pick up the phone now and intervene much quicker.
Yeah, I think they always say that parental contact is the number one way to either, well, in terms of positives, negatives, or just neutral, is the number one way to keep in touch. I think again, again, my pastoral role, I used to call parents a lot. And before I was a teacher, I think the conversation may be slightly different to now. I think my approach is a bit more, I think what you mentioned about how can we support what's going on, as opposed to just so you know, your child hasn't done 4 pieces of homework this week. He needs to sort it out kind of approach. Because clearly, if the child's missing homework that regularly, there could be, and then this is with me and my kind of safeguarding hat on, there could be circumstances going on in that child's kind of wider life, or just life, I should say, that's affecting them. And it's weird. I think when you're a non-parent teacher, sometimes you don't always, your first instinct isn't, oh, maybe there's something going on in the family life. Your first instinct is, I need this child to get my homework done. I need to make sure the parent knows they're not doing my homework. So I'm going to follow the step-by-step to make sure I call the parent, tell them to get the homework done, and then I've done my job. And I think some teachers now take a much more sensitive approach, which can be beneficial to find out, right, just so you're aware, I've had a bit of issues with homework. Can I just check, first of all, let's see if everything okay, is anything we can do to support? Can we do anything in school? Because I know home life and everything is difficult. I think when teachers used to ask parents and say, right, you checking the planners, you checking there, and some parents are like, no, I've not had time. Maybe some teachers who aren't parents can't really empathize with that. But I think once you become a parent and you're still a teacher, you realize the can't have time is so real. It's so true. You've got a million, like when you're just trying to get home to sort out the food and the dinner and make sure no one's going to pick up anything off the floor and put in their mouth, and making sure this is going on, and make sure everyone's going to get ready and they're fed and everything else. Maybe the last thing you're thinking about is, right, where's a planner? Let me check the planner to make sure they've done the homework. Because most parents, what they do is say, you done your homework? Kid goes, yep. And then before you know it, that's the end of their check-in, because that's all the time they've got to dedicate to it. And you realize that much more when you become a parent yourself, because there's a disconnect beforehand sometimes, because it seems so easy. Of course, you're going to check the plan. Of course, you're going to see if they've done the work that they've been told to do. But when you're a parent in that situation, boy, it's a different story. It's a different
Look
story.
what you mentioned earlier about the amount of time you have in the evening with your son. If that time is not just, dinner, bath, bed, which it is when they're little, if it's then, trigonometry and geography, that is not a lot of time to get all of those things done. So there's a really good chance that you're cooking the dinner while they're doing the homework. And do you know what that homework is? I can completely see how that goes by the wayside. I am certain that at some point I'm going to be the mum who forgets the bake sale or the non-uniform day or whatever it might be, because it's so easy to see now how those things might be forgotten.
Yeah. I was going to say, people in the chat, let me know. Got a number of people listening. Let me know, what do you have? So for me, I've got a child who's nearly 1, so I can't really relate to the homework situation. For those of you that may have children who are kind of primary school age or even secondary school age, how do you manage their kind of checking that they're on top of their work, at the same time balancing your commitments in the house, wherever your commitments are in the evening? Do you have any strategies? Is there a routine that the kids are in? I don't know. Do the kids come straight in and show you their kind of diary for the evening on their homework? Has the school got a system that informs you about what they've got coming up, so it does the work for you? I don't know. I'm just wondering, because I don't have a child who's kind of school age, so I'm not interacting with the home life, the homework, home life balance at the moment. But if you are, let me know in the chat. How do you manage it? If you're a teacher and your kids got homework, how do you manage that? Do you have time to sit down with them, or is it let them get on with it themselves and hope they're going to do the best that they can, and then you're just going to ask them how they did, and they say, yep, did it all, and you'll say, did you really? Yep, did it. Next thing you know, you get a phone call saying it's incomplete. I wonder if that happens. I've got someone in the chat saying, I get little one to always go through a plan for the homework, whether it's a presentation or maths. So I get it. So I imagine the onus. So you ask the child what the actual plan is. What are you going to do for homework today? And they say this. I think that's good to hold them to account. There's a lot of kids I know that I teach whose parents don't go through that rigor with them. And you can see it in the kind of quality of their homework, because this presentation is poor, or it's tatty, or who knows. But you can just tell the parent just didn't have the time. In their priorities, unfortunately, the kid doing the homework is not number one. And it shows, and it's sad, but that's life. That's life sometimes, and that's parenting. You just got to prioritize, I guess. And we as teachers have to always remember that there's more going on than just the kid in front of us. And in their life, I tell you now, one piece of maths homework may not be the most important thing when they go home. We need to
Yeah,
step back
completely.
sometime.
Particularly when they're at secondary level and they have, you know, X number of subject teachers, every one of them who thinks the homework they set is the most important thing in the world. Sometimes it can't be.
Yeah, it is great. It is crazy. We put so much, there's so much expectation and pressure on young people with all their like 3 homeworks a day, 2 homeworks a day, 4 homeworks a day, and each teacher's then having a moan at you when you've not done it. Like we just said, as if it's like it should have been your number one priority. How have you not done my history recall practice on, I don't know, name the history topic, Nazi Germany? Don't know, I went for that. How could you not have done it? Ridiculous. I gave you 2 whole days to get your Nazi Germany homework done, and you've not done it. Outrageous. I'll see you in detention. And some teachers just can't. They just don't think it's that their world is obviously their history class, so they're gonna prioritize that. But we always have to take a step back and remember that. I tell you now, in the grand scheme of what some kids have to deal with when they go home, history homework, maths homework, geography homework is not their priority. We have to hold our line and everything, but I don't agree with kind of like reprimanding the kid and making it sound like they've done a completely bad thing by not getting the homework done.
Yeah, it's a balancing act, isn't it?
Definitely. There's been a big so I think it says Amanda. Amanda said, actually, wait, sorry, we've got Jen was going to say, yeah, it keeps her accountable as she set the plan herself. That's nice. Amanda's saying that I have a 14 and 11-year-old, and it was easier when they're both younger to manage at bedtime, mostly just reading and signing their reading journal. However, now they're getting older, it's easier for them to complete independently, but I check in. I always try to remember my children always come first. If I do for other people's children, I must do for my own. That's a very nice message. Our children do come first, and we know that. It sounds like a no-brainer, but I think we still have to keep reminding ourselves, especially in times when maybe we've realized that we haven't got something done for work because of maybe something happened in the home, and then maybe your line manager's having a bit of not a moan, but maybe they're pulling you up on it because you missed a deadline. But really, something happened at home that took priority. And I think I personally know I have the kind of candor to say, I apologize, but I had to deal with something at home, and in the grand scheme, it took priority. So I apologize for missing the deadline. I'll get it done as soon as I can. But yesterday evening was a tough one at home. I'd say that to my line manager if that was my scenario. I think some teachers wouldn't, for fear of whatever, I don't know, maybe not being seen as being capable of doing their job with all things considered. But I know if something happened to my kids, I couldn't get the work done for work, I'd say, sorry, I didn't get it done, but there was an urgent thing at home that took priority, and that no line manager should ever reprimand you or think ill of you for that.
I wonder, Kalil, if it's the same for women, because if as a mother, as a female teacher, if you go in and say, I had parenting responsibilities, it is a very different dynamic, and there is a certain kind of respect that's given to a father who's put their children first. But when it's a mother, I think there is more of a tendency, yes, we're talking more broadly, and it's not all the time, of course, but I think there is an element of slightly writing off of, oh, she's a mum then. And there's a lot of weight for it for a woman to say, I can't do this because of this parenting responsibility, because it changes the way that you are viewed at work, whether we would like to think it is or not. But it is different for mothers.
Yeah, no, you make it. Listen, I'm glad we're having this conversation, because it's something that I wouldn't have. Well, of course, I'm not a mum, so I wouldn't have considered it. But I wonder if people in the chat can empathize with this. I've seen a lot. You're getting a lot of agreement in the chat here, Sasha, from all the mums, because it is, and it's a kind of harsh kind of patriarchy that we're trying to knock down, but still kind of pervades society at the moment. That what you said about a father saying, "Oh, I couldn't do it because I had to do something with my kids." They feel, and maybe the listener thinks, "Oh, you've gone above and beyond.
They do,
fair play to you. Well, fair play to you. Well done. I understand." Mum says the same thing. They think, "Hold on, you're the mum. You should." What do you think their kind of subconscious is telling them?
Oh, I think more than just subconscious. I've had the conversations. There is that element that, oh, you're just a mum, or that certainly in SLT sometimes there's this view that, oh, well, that person's a mum first. I've definitely heard conversations where people have discussed someone having a child in reference to whether they would be ideal for a promotion or a position because, you know, they are a mother. It's shocking, some of the things you hear. I mean, you just look at the statistics. So, you know, 75% of mothers work versus 92% of fathers. And 28.5% of mothers reduce their working hours when they have children versus just 4.8% of men. You know, there is an expectation, and, you know, there's a lot of parameters around that, finances, etc. But there is an expectation that if there are parental duties, the lion's share of those are by a woman. And therefore, that then has a knock-on effect in terms of how you are viewed within your career. Because if you are a working mother, the school, SLT, whoever it might be, knows that ultimately you have a different priority first.
Yeah.
In the same way that I think is maybe not the expectation for a father. So you said that both you and your partner are teachers.
We are indeed, yeah.
So if your son was unwell and had to be off nursery, is there a more obvious one of you who would then take the time off work?
I don't know. We haven't come across that
yet.
It yet.
Yeah.
It hasn't happened.
Without fail, it is always me that has to. And yes, it's a slightly different situation because I'm a single parent, but, you know, I do co-parent. But the assumption is always, without fail, that it will be me. And I think for most teachers I know, and it is not always the way, of course, but broadly speaking, it tends to be the mums that take on more of the parental roles.
You make a good, my brain is ticking over at the moment thinking, what would I, if little man, so I'm just thinking tomorrow's a bad example because my partner's part-time. And let's go for Tuesday morning, little man's unwell, too unwell to go to nursery. Who would stay? I honestly think I wouldn't not say, oh, I'll stay at home, you go to. I think I genuinely, because like I said, my partner works part-time, so she's only working 3 out of the 5 days. So it make math, even if I go to like, let's go maths, let's go mathematically, it makes more sense for me to take the day and look after him so she can go to work because she only has that as a proportion of her time at work. That is a bigger proportion. So it makes sense for me to do it. I don't think, go on.
But the fact that she also works part-time, is that not part of it?
How do you mean? Go on.
You know, when we have teaching couples or teaching parents or even just working parents, the majority of time when there is a step down in work for childcare, it is the woman that does the step down.
It is true. No, you're right. And
this is me being critical of you, of course. You know, I know you would look after your son, obviously. But yeah, it's just that assumption. But that then does feed into how female teachers are viewed, because there's that, oh, do we want her because she might have to go off with a child or do X, Y, and Z?
It's got really deep. It's got
heavy.
Really,
sorry.
No, it's got really deep and reflective. I'm sitting here. I don't know if you know that gif where Batman is just stroking his chin. I'm doing that Batman stroking gif at the moment. Just thinking, I'm like, and it's one of those things. I think I can't remember if we had the conversation about who would go part-time or whether, like you said, it was just assumed. I'm trying to think. I feel like if we did, I feel like, yeah. And this is me just holding my hands up with some integrity. Just say, I think I may have just assumed that she would go. If any one of us were going to go part-time, it's going to be my partner. Yeah. And now I'm just thinking,
I remember that conversation.
And I was just thinking, I'm sitting there feeling like a bad guy. There's no reason why I couldn't have gone. But yeah, wow, it's got really deep at 2 p.m. on a Sunday lunch show. This was supposed to be jovial. Don't worry about it.
Instead, shall I tell you about the time that I was remote teaching and I looked up and my daughter was outside wearing nothing but a tutu, jumping on a trampoline in the rain, and I said, "Sorry, kids, I have to go."
Oh wow! Just she just went outside, took herself outside.
Took herself outside in just a tutu. Don't know where her clothes went. She was just wearing a tutu. Yeah. Just jumping in the rain on a trampoline. So you know, it's
living her best life
as well. Yeah, she was.
Sasha, listen, there's a couple more comments. I know you've got to kind of go around this time. There's a couple more comments just to kind of wrap it up. It's been a very, very, very good conversation. I've enjoyed this very much. So there's a couple more comments. Miss Kato Stem said she agreed that it was different for mothers and fathers. Amanda came in with another, agreed. Someone said that some of my female teacher colleagues are astonished. I know what my kids' homework is, because clearly they don't have the time to find out or interact with as much what their kids are doing at home. They haven't got the time. Miss Cato Stem said that my head of department jokingly said nobody's allowed to take maternity next academic year because she took it this academic year. But then, as she said, there's a hint of truth in every joke. So that's a head of department saying no one's allowed maternity leave because we've already had our kind of maternity leave quota. That's outrageous. It's one of those things I wouldn't even want someone to even jokingly say. And there's no excuse. Oh, I'm just joking, guys, just joking. Because I agree, behind every joke's a little bit of truth. Then we had someone called Rami saying, I love you, teacher. I'm assuming you're talking to me. I'll take that compliment. Thank you very much. If you're talking to Sasha, Sasha will take that compliment as well. And he said, thank you for teaching me. Again, you're welcome. I don't know what I've taught you, but if you've enjoyed the show, thank you very much. And then Karen said that she can hear the contemplating from here. Listen, I was stroking my recently shaved off beard because I was in deep contemplation thinking the patriarchy is within me and I need to make sure. Listen, as men, we need to reflect. The patriarchy is within. We need to reflect. We need to own it and we need to call it out and we need to be challenged on it. And
I'd
I'm
love to be a
glad
fly on the wall for the conversation you have after
we need to be challenged on it, just like we do with any other kind of systems or prejudices, everything else. We need to challenge the patriarchy that's kind of ingrained in us. And we need to call it out. And I thank you for doing that. And we got this. The hour has absolutely flown, Sasha. And all I can say, thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for coming on. I hope you can tune in, stay in the studio, tune in later on, tune in next week, all that kind of stuff, because we're trying to build this TT radio family. But yeah, we're going to go to news now. But Sasha, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for coming on this Sunday.
It was a pleasure.
No worries at all. Thank you very much.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News with Sebastian Sagnia.
I am Sebastian Sagnia, and this is Teachers Talk Radio with the news. The First Lady Jill Biden will be welcoming students across America to the nation's capital in a virtual trip to Washington, D.C. It is the latest virtual trip produced by Discovery Education, a global edtech leader. The Shadow's Child Poverty Minister, Wes Streeting, has warned that the government will face the impacts of what he called recent grotesque school budget cuts. He also revealed he is undergoing treatment for kidney cancer. The popular Netflix show, Sex Education, is rumoured to be aired this June or July. This comes at a time of much discussion over the government's new RSE curriculum that is now compulsory for all schools. This is Teachers Talk Radio, and that was the news with me, Sebastian Sagnia.
Live from London, this is the Sunday Lunch with Kalil Rouse on Teachers Talk Radio.
What an hour has passed already. It's the Sunday Lunch with me, Kalil Rouse, and the time is 3 minutes past 2. If you've just tuned in, you've missed a great conversation about the trials and tribulations of parenting and teacherhood with parenting and teacherhood, teaching and parenthood. I'm going to run out of time, so I'm just going to ramble for a bit. Now we're going to talk about masks and the catch-up fund.
Live from London, this is the Sunday Lunch with Kalil Rouse on Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live on the Podbean app or desktop player. Just head over to www.podbean.com/LSW/TT Radio or search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TT Radio.
Hello, and welcome back. 4 minutes past 2. An hour has absolutely flown by. Let me know if you're still listening in the chat. Send me some love. Hope you enjoyed that conversation I just had with Sasha White. And get some emojis in the chat. If you're listening live via potentially YouTube or Twitter or Facebook, then feel free to tweet either at TT Radio 2021 or tweet me directly at Kalil_R91 and let me know your thoughts. Up next, we're just going to talk about kind of current affairs. At the moment, there's a kind of two kind of recent articles that kind of took my interest. The first one is around masks and the fact we've got these easing restrictions happening tomorrow. And Boris has come out and said in the news that there's going to no longer be a requirement for kids to wear face masks in schools as part of this kind of easing of lockdown. So I wonder what your thoughts are. Straight away in the chat, let me know. Based on that news alone, I'm sure you're aware of it anyway. What are your thoughts? This news article from the BBC, title is "Face Mask No Longer Required in Classrooms." Let me know what you think. I think my kind of predecessor on the show, well, not predecessor, Graham Collum, who was on the show before me. He has a kind of Sunday brunch show. He was mentioning about it as well, and saying thoughts on all these kind of new variants coming in, everything else. And we're still going on our road to freedom, if you want to call it that. And they're talking about face masks no longer required in schools. Let me know your thoughts. Is that something you're fine with? Have you got no issues with it? Have the kids kind of steadily stopped wearing them in your classrooms anyway? Are we complacent? Is my question. Do you think we're becoming complacent now as COVID is no longer as rife as it were, or as rife as it was, now becoming complacent with all the face coverings in schools? Do you find yourself being less vigilant? I wonder, is a question I'm and it's looking like a foggy mess. So I find it difficult to teach with a mask, and I try as best as possible, but sometimes I've got to take a step back and remove it for a bit just so I can breathe a little bit, because even wearing the blue disposables, I find it tough. So let me know if you're the same. Are you required to have the mask on teaching at all times, even if you're 2 meters away? Let me know. I do wonder how other schools are doing it, because I've not been able to get into other schools and see how you guys are doing it. So let me know in the chat. This is the only way I can find out. Albert in the chat has said, I can't wait till they're gone. They're uncomfortable, hard to communicate. I don't think it's hygienic. He said, students coming to PE, re-wearing masks. That's just been on the just been on the floor. What? Listen, but that's the thing. The hygiene of it, I do question the hygiene of it, because we know we've got these disposable masks that I think people assume, or maybe the guidelines is they're supposed to be a one use and then bin. How many kids do you think are wearing disposable masks and binning it that day and getting a new one next day? Or are they just scrunching them up in their pocket and putting them back on their face the next day? I have questions out, but just like you around the hygiene of it, I don't think people are being vigilant with the hygiene of their masks. I say people, I'm generalizing. I imagine there's a lot of people that aren't being hygienic with their face coverings, re-wearing masks, not washing them, and just wearing it because they know they have to. And the amount of germs and bugs, and I say bugs, germs on the face covering. A good example, actually, if you in one of my lessons, we have a kind of stipulation that we want face coverings to just be plain, just so we don't get very loud. I say loud face coverings with slogans and all these kind of patterns and designs and stuff, so that face coverings become more of a functional use as opposed to a fashion show. That's our kind of justification. And there was a person that was wearing they brought in for once, I think it was like a fancy man. I said, right, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to, I'll get you another face covering that's plain. And what this boy did, instinctively, he took off his face covering, turned it inside out, and put it back on his face. He turned it, he didn't think, he just said, oh, it's white on the inside, so I'm just going to turn it inside out and put it back